Today we're making stir-fried glutinous rice, a traditional Cantonese dish known for its chewy texture and savoury, umami-rich flavour. And we start by dealing with the chewy rice by rinsing it under cold running water. This will remove the surface starch, reducing the risk of them clumping together later. Now, glutinous rice is extremely misleadingly named because it's 0% gluten and almost 100% starch, and starch likes to absorb water. So we soak the rice, first to prepare it for even gelatinization later, which would lead to even chewiness. Second, this softens the outer layer, preventing it from becoming too chewy. And third, and most importantly, it reduces the cooking time significantly because it has already absorbed moisture, which is particularly important because we're going for the restaurant-style, raw stir-frying method, meaning there will be no pre-steaming or pre-cooking of the rice. That's what's going to give us the distinct texture. So, at least 4 hours, but ideally overnight. And since we're soaking anyway, we'll take this opportunity to soak our 2 umami bombs. We have dry mushrooms, which, given the long period, we are going to make what I call a cold brew dashi out of it, as opposed to using hot water. And we have the dry shrimps, which, as much as I like shrimps, you do not want a dashi out of this. And you want to change the water quite a few times. So, overnight, tomorrow, some chewy goodness. Day 2, we've drained out the soaking liquid for the rice and the dry shrimp, and now we have our extremely concentrated cold brew dashi. Of course, we squeeze out all the liquid from the dry mushrooms, and we warm up our dashi to get it ready for cooking. I'm deliberately not diluting the dashi. I'd rather use all the concentrated dashi in the beginning and then add hot water, instead of unnecessarily adding way too much water and not getting all the flavors. So now we simply dice the mushrooms. And whatever we don't use, we'll throw into the dashi pot to impart even more flavors. Extra mushrooms back in. Shrimp. I like these really fine. And we're using quite a lot because we soaked them overnight. If you're only soaking them to soften them, use less because they will be way more concentrated. Now the extra one can go into the dashi to impart flavors because they are no longer excessively fishy. Now, the Chinese sausage, I personally like to blanch them for about 5 minutes. A, to make handling easier. B, and more importantly, to get rid of the excess salt and excess sugar so we have more control over how we want to season the dish. Of course, you could always add them back in. So, just 5 minutes. Mince a scallion, of course, the roots, dashi pot. The white part will become our aromatic vegetable, kind of like an onion, and the green part, our garnish, similar to chives. We slice our blanched sausage. Once again, offcuts, dashi. I like to slice them without a bias, so that when they hit the pan, they curl up slightly, like mini spoons, and that will stick to the sticky rice. Now we can cook. Now straight into a cold skillet, we add the Chinese sausage to see, along with the savory notes, the sweetness, the contrasting texture, how much yummy pork fat we can get out of them. So we bring in the heat gradually. Unless you're a seasoned cook with a really well-seasoned pan, I highly recommend that you cook this dish and many Chinese restaurant-style dishes with a non-stick skillet. The high heat burner, along with the oil they tend to use in Chinese restaurants, by default make all woks non-stick. And fond creation has never been featured prominently in Chinese cooking. The only time you would see a Chinese chef deglass a wok is during washing. So take the stress away, use a non-stick, enjoy the process. Now, once you can see a decent amount of yummy pork fat, the umami bombs, they go in. And the mushrooms will also give us a bit of earthiness to balance the dish. We cook them out to further concentrate their flavors. Immediately, you can almost smell the sea from the shrimp. High tide, not low tide. Now, before adding the scallion, and knowing I have a really hot pan just from the sound of the sizzle, I'm going to go off-piece and introduce some unsalted butter. We are deliberately bringing the butter above its smoke point, which is about 150 degrees Celsius, to burn the milk solids slightly, to give us a hint of smokiness, and together with the Maillard reaction and caramelization on the Chinese sausage, we have the illusion of wok-hei, that distinct flavor that makes Cantonese wok dishes very special. And that's another reason why we held off on the oil addition in the beginning. Now we lower the heat slightly and we add the scallion white. It will give us some sweetness. Once the scallion is translucent, the rice goes in before the liquid elements, because we want to make sure each starch granule on the surface will be coated by what is now the very tasty oil. And unlike a risotto, where you're trying all you can to agitate, to release the starch, to make the sauce creamy, here we're doing all we can to delay, to slow that down from happening, just so that they don't clump together. These bad boys are capable of producing super glue. So don't worry about them not being sticky and chewy. Now, you inspect the surface of the rice to see if you're satisfied that each is coated with a thin layer of oil. Of course, a lot of restaurants, they add way too much oil for my liking. Yes, that prevents clumping, but you also don't want to have a centimeter of oil at the bottom of your bowl. Just a tiny bit more, in this case, of neutral oil. Now, before starting adding any form of liquid, knowing how much we want to minimize unnecessary agitation, we switch from the spatula to wooden chopsticks that you're happy to never see again. First up, the light soy sauce. And this is our main source of salinity. And of course, reinforcing all the umami we just added with the mushrooms, with the dry shrimp. I prefer adding only light soy in the beginning and decide whether it needs dark soy for color towards the end. Oyster sauce, again, ton of umami, and if using store-bought, also thickens the whole thing a tiny bit. Next up, Shaoxing Wine, for a bit of umami and a ton of floral aroma that you normally associate with Cantonese cooking. I'm being very gentle with my chopstick movement. I don't want to break the surface with too much force. A bit of clumping is not avoidable given the other name of glutinous rice is sticky rice, but you want to keep them as individually grained as possible. White pepper with a signature Cantonese-style heat. Now we start to add our very flavoursome dashi, one ladle at a time, and the hydration, swelling, and eventually gelatinization begins. That would give us the signature soft yet chewy texture. And here I have my emergency ice water. The moment you feel this is clumping too fast, you add a dash to slow down the gelatinization. And with this dish, don't trust any recipes, including mine, in terms of the cooking time. Everyone has different rice. Everyone has different soaking time. The moment you go past the 5-minute mark, taste every minute. And the moment it's no longer al dente, it needs to come out. And every time, I wait until there's not much steam coming out before the next ladle. Like sponges, the liquid doesn't even get to touch the bottom. Crazy. I'm just breaking them. I'm not even trying to stir too much. Not more than a minute. Last ladle. So this whole thing took me 7 minutes. That's how fast it could cook sometimes. So please, please taste. Stove off. Small dash of toasted sesame oil for that wonderful fragrance. Scallion green we saved earlier for color and brightness. And that's my sticky, but not too sticky, gluten-free, glutinous rice.